So I've been told Megyn Kelly grilled Trump in an interview. I haven't seen it yet, but we're going to react to it here on Speechless. Cut for time. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless Cut for Time. I'm your host, Kev Phares, and these are videos I do when I can't necessarily make everything fit onto my radio show on Cities 92.9. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, and share it with your friends. You guys are the best. But let's get into it. Megyn Kelly had Trump on her show and asked him a lot of questions from at least the title of the video. Fauci, lockdowns, COVID vaccines, and more. And I'm very interested to see exactly what she asked him, because I have been somebody, while conservative, critical of Trump, especially as it comes to his COVID response. And so I'm curious as to see what she asks him and how he responds. Let's take a look here at the former president on Megyn Kelly's show, and we're going to react to it.
For years, you've been saying that the reason you didn't fire Anthony Fauci was because he'd been there for a long time, that you would have taken heat, that it would have created a firestorm, quoting your words. Then for the first time in May...
I also said I didn't listen to him too much.
I'm getting there. But then in May, you started saying, well, he's a civil servant, so I couldn't technically. The truth is, though, not only did you not fire Fauci, who is loathed by many, millions of Republicans in particular, but also some Democrats.
By the way, he's a criminal. Fauci's a criminal. Yes, he is loathed. He is an awful person, responsible for the deaths of millions.
You made him a star. You made him a star. This is the criticism of you, that you made him the face of the White House coronavirus task
You think so?
force, that he was out at every presser, that he was running herd for the administration on COVID, and that you actually gave him a presidential commendation before you left office.
Yep.
Wouldn't you like a do-over on that?
I don't know who gave him the commendation. I really don't know who gave him the commendation.
Presidential commendation. One went
I know.
out to Mark
Somebody
Miller, too.
probably handed him a commendation. But let me just tell you about Fauci. Fauci was very important in the Biden administration.
That's an awful answer. I don't know who gave him the commendation. If you go back actually onto the archives of the presidential websites, under the Trump website, it was his administration who gave the commendation. So you should know that, especially when it comes to giving one to Fauci, such a prolific a-hole.
It's less important. If you know, he didn't want to stop China. He wanted to let everyone come in from China. I stopped it. I overrode it. I overrode many of the things he did. He was much less important to me. Now, with that all being said, he's been there for years. He was respected. He lost a lot of the respect because of COVID, but he was respected. And on COVID...
He was also known as a person that had messed up on the AIDS epidemic, because he was the person that was supposed to be in charge then, too. Respected is a interesting word for Trump to use there. And I'm especially, I mean, as soon as Fauci, which this is early on, as soon as Fauci flip-flopped on masks, this is like real, like early on in COVID, I'm old enough to remember Fauci flip-flopped on masks. Day one, it was, oh no, like you don't really need them. They don't work. They're not that big of a deal. And then all of a sudden it was, no, now you need one and maybe even wear two. And it needs to be this kind of mask and that kind of mask. And you remember, Fauci was the one that was pushing all the crazy crap. Oh, COVID spreads on surfaces. No, it doesn't. It dies quick, but it also spreads, and it can spread from your air, but not if you're standing 6 feet apart. But you also can't be even standing in the same room as somebody, even if you're 6 feet apart. Remember? That was Fauci pushing all of that early on. And this is one of my biggest criticisms of former President Trump, is that, no, recognize, period. Even Megyn Kelly tried to give him an out there. Say, hey, wouldn't you want a redo on that? And he said, no. And this is where his ego gets the best of him, because even his ego will not allow him to say, I made a mistake. And I'd have so much more respect for him if he said, I made a mistake. But let's listen to hear if he actually says, I made a mistake.
If you know what I did, I let the governors run their states. And many of the governors opened up their states. Some of them didn't. Florida, by the way, was closed. But if you take a look at Henry McMaster, he had his state.
Florida was not closed. This is a lie. And if you go back, I actually have video of Trump praising DeSantis and his COVID response. And this is what, oh my gosh, this is what makes me so mad, is like, come on, admit. You got to be able to admit when somebody is doing a really good job. And DeSantis did do a really good job with COVID. Here's Trump when he praised DeSantis for what he had to do with COVID.
A governor like Ron DeSantis of Florida is doing a great job.
We're in a place called Florida, and we have a great governor.
Great governor, knows exactly what he's doing.
Terrific job. He just announced that the schools will be open in the fall. Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has done a spectacular job in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis doing a fantastic job, enjoys very high popularity, and that's for a reason. The reason is he's doing a good job. The governor's done a great job. Florida is down low now in the China virus.
He's done a lot of things right.
And you're open and you didn't close.
And you're open and you didn't close.
It's just amazing, right? It's great.
A lot of people agree with what he's done.
Ron DeSantis of Florida, the governor, doing a fantastic job in Florida. Your governor, Ron DeSantis, who's turned out to be just incredible, and the coronavirus you see is going down rapidly.
Proportionately, relatively, when you look at your nursing home situation, it's a tribute to your governor and government.
See, exactly. And you guys get it. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Trump to say, and we're going to go back and listen to exactly what he had to say. And I know we're only like a minute into this so far, but for him to say and to criticize DeSantis, I get it. He's running a campaign against the guy, but don't flat out lie. Like you're flat out lying in this case, Don. And it's kind of just listen again. After we just heard all that, Florida was open. Trump said it. Trump out of his own mouth. You guys are open. It's great. Great job, Governor.
From China, I stopped it. I overrode it. I overrode many of the things he did. He was much less important to me. Now, with that all being said, he's been there for years. He was respected. He lost a lot of the respect because of COVID, but he was respected. And on COVID, if you know what I did, I let the governors run their states, and many of the governors opened up their states. Some of them didn't. Florida, by the way, was closed.
Lie.
But if you take a look at Henry McMaster, he had his state,
Florida
South
was not
Carolina,
closed.
open. You take a look at South Dakota. Take a look at Tennessee. A lot of the states were not closed, and it's the federalist system. I allowed the governors to do that. I also allowed Democrat governors to do that, but I don't think none of them did it.
Wouldn't you like to go back and try to clip his wings? This guy was pushing mask mandates on us. He wanted the most extreme measure at every turn.
Okay, look,
Fauci.
I'm not one that
Fauci.
blames a system that if you're civil service or if you have some other protection that you can't get fired, because I've done things that are a lot worse than that.
You're big on the firing.
So yeah, I fired a lot of people. I fired Comey. And that was one of the great firings. I fired Comey, and then I fired a lot of other people in the FBI, and they were great firings because the deep state, and they were at work, and they were not good people. But I was not a big fan of Fauci. If you look at Ron DeSanctimonious, this guy said the greatest things. I can give you articles that, well, Fauci's great. He's wonderful. We love him. We don't do anything without Fauci. This went on for months.
But he didn't listen to Fauci.
He did.
He didn't listen to Fauci. And here's the thing is, no one asked about Ron DeSantis. And Trump is making it about Ron DeSantis, which is fascinating because COVID is the reason why Ron DeSantis is running for president. I'm telling you. COVID is, and him keeping his state open and defying the things Fauci said regarding COVID are the reasons led to his fame and notoriety as a governor. And so for Trump to try to attack him on that, weak political move, in my opinion.
100%. Look,
he shut down Florida.
He shut down Florida
for a month.
Oh, he shut it down for a lot longer. He shut down the beaches. He shut down the roads. He shut down a hospital. He was shutting down everything. He also had long lines of people.
Shut down hospitals?
See,
this is how I know that Trump is kind of just pulling stuff out of his butt a little bit. Because you don't shut down hospitals, especially during COVID. You don't the governor doesn't do that.
Jab, as he called it. Let's all go get the jab. The guy tried to change history in Florida. Now, eventually Florida was open, but a lot of these other governors didn't shut down at all. South Dakota didn't shut down. McMaster, South Carolina, didn't shut down. Tennessee, there are states that didn't shut down at all. They probably did the best job.
But Ron DeSantis was under a lot of pressure, especially given the population, the age of a lot of Florida's citizens.
I'm not trying to blame anybody, but he should say, I closed it down. Eventually we opened it, but I closed it down. But I gave him the right to keep it open if he wanted to. I let the governors make the determination as to whether or not to close it down.
But let me ask you this, because this is the number one question I ask my audience. What would you like me to ask President Trump?
Okay.
These are your fans.
Okay.
This is the number one question they wanted me to ask you. That you shut the country down for 6 weeks in spring of 2020. Operation Warp Speed.
Excuse me.
Rush
right?
through.
I didn't really.
Let me ask
No,
their
no, but
question.
Megyn,
This is my audience's question. I got to get it out.
But I let the governors shut down. Some did and some didn't.
Okay.
Some didn't shut down at all.
Operation Warp Speed, though.
Yeah.
That was on the vaccines. They were rushed through. They have helped, but also hurt a lot of people. And your White House actually supported mask mandates. So wouldn't you like a do-over on any of that?
This would be
this
would be a perfect time for him to say, I admit I made mistakes. We didn't know what was going on. In hindsight, yes, I would like a do-over, knowing what I know now. A person with true humility would say that. A person with true humility would say that. Let's see.
This came in. Nobody knew what the hell it was. It sounded like an ancient, pandemic. You thought that was from 200 years ago or from 1917.
He's on the right track.
We'd have a pandemic. Nobody had any idea. We got word that bad things were happening in China right around the Wuhan clinic. And I was the one that said it was in the Wuhan clinic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I stuck with it, and it was absolutely.
Okay.
It came out of the Wuhan clinic.
Now say I made a mistake.
And what we did was, this was brand new. Nobody knew what the hell it was. There's dust. Somebody said there's dust coming in from China, and it's killing people in Italy, and it's killing people in France, and it's going to kill people here. And by the way, I shut it down to China. That was a big move. I saved thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives by doing it. But honestly, I don't blame a lot of people because nobody knew what it was. Now we do understand it somewhat. Nobody really understands it even now fully, but nobody knew what.
But this is why I'd really like him to say, in hindsight, I shouldn't have done some of those things. But instead, he's saying, I don't blame anybody, so you also shouldn't blame me. Which I think Trump is not a humble man. I think he's the opposite. And I think this interview is showing a lot of that.
COVID was, and it wasn't even a name. I called it the China virus. I still do. I call it the China virus. It came out of China. They call it COVID and COVID-19. As far as the vaccine's concerned, you had the original COVID, and the vaccine had an impact on that. And there are some people, I will tell you, some friends of mine that are Democrat, I think they voted for me, but they're Democrat, very smart people, top people. They say, I don't understand one thing. Why don't you talk more about the vaccine? It was one of the greatest things you've ever done. Now think of that. They say to me, and I say, I'm not going to talk about it one way or the other. First of all, no mandates. I don't want mandates. I never had mandates. Florida sort of had a mandate because they were giving the vaccine. They were demanding everybody take the vaccine.
Again, no one's bringing up Florida, but then he does. And also, from my understanding, Florida does not have a governmental mandate. Maybe localities do. Maybe schools of some kind do. Again, wrong. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the governor's fault. And that's what he's trying to do here, is he's trying to make all of this about attacking DeSantis on COVID, which is the one area I really think you cannot attack DeSantis on.
Vaccine. It's another thing. But no mandates, no anything. I didn't demand anybody take it. But I have people on the other side. Not my side, although probably there's some on my side too. They said, you saved 100 million people because I got it done in 9 months as opposed to 5 years to 12 years. A lot of people.
You're proud of it.
No, I'm not proud of it. I'm saying what Democrats think. Democrats.
I get it. I mean, and I'm not somebody who denies some of the good that the vaccines did. I lived through that too. But of course, a lot of people have been vaccine injured. And that's one of the questions. Those people are mad that they were rushed through and that they can't sue.
Well, I never gave mandates, and people have to make up their own, make their own decision. As far as I'm concerned, now some places had mandates, very strong mandates, largely Democrat governors and probably some Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. But there are Democrats that say, why aren't you talking about that? It's one of they really believe strongly. One said, and this is very smart people. They said, you saved 100 million people worldwide. In 1917, it could have been as much as 100 million. It ended the First World War because all the soldiers were dying of this horrible disease of 1917. You know, it actually ended the First World War. The soldiers were dying. They was on the lines, they're fighting, and they're dying of this horrible disease. They said, you might have saved 100 million people, 50 million people. Why aren't you talking about it? I said, I'm not talking about it. But what I did do is I got something done for that specific thing. I also got Regeneron, and I got a lot of therapeutics done, which were great. I also got the robes and the leather and the rubber and all of the different things, the ventilators. We did a tremendous job, and it's never, you know, they appreciated what I did with the economy. I got a lot of good marks on economy. I got a lot of good marks on a lot of things, rebuilding the military, getting rid of ISIS, the biggest tax cuts in history.
Supreme
I
Court.
never got, I think, the credit that I deserve on COVID. And I'll tell you the way I look at it.
You know, I'll agree with him to an extent on that. I don't think that the media gave him enough credit. I think the media liked to focus on every bad thing. That's why they had the COVID death counters and everything like that on all your mainstream media networks. However, I don't think that he did it as perfectly as he likes to at least outline, or at least he made a lot more mistakes than he's willing to admit.
Came in and nobody knew it was. We have to put ourselves back then. I had a meeting and we had a lot of professionals in the Oval Office. They say, sir, something bad is happening in the world. I said, what's that? And they said, people are dying. They're dying in China, in this area. And there was pictures of body bags all over the place, black body bags, satellite pictures, and they were all over. I said, that's strange. And then they'd have another meeting the next day and the next day and the next day. And all of a sudden they had something where the first person died in the United States and then another.
Yeah.
And then it died. Then they started dying all over Italy and all over Europe. Nobody really knew what it was, Megyn.
So there's more interviews and stuff. I just wanted to play the COVID one because I thought it's one of the ones gaining the most traction. And I don't think she has actually released the entire full length interview, but I'm very fascinated with the fact that she really grills him, because I thought Tucker's interview compared to this one, Tucker's interview with Trump was a little bit more of a softball interview. I will admit that. Even though I don't like to admit it, because I really like Tucker and I had bigger hopes for it. But here's the thing is Trump made mistakes as president. You're not a rhino for saying that. Now, was Trump the best president in my lifetime? Yes. Is he arguably probably within the top 5 presidents of the United States of all time? Likely. I would say so. I'd put him in that. However, when it came to COVID, here's the answers that he should have gave to those questions, because I believe he made mistakes in COVID. I thought he made mistakes during COVID, and in hindsight, I think there's a lot more. But I think that a Democrat probably would have handled it 10 times worse. But still, how he should have answered those questions is simple. He should have said what he's always said. Look, I am an outsider. I was an outsider when I came into office. The swamp was big and I knew it, but I didn't know how deep it really was. People like Fauci, I was told, misinformed, were respected in the field. And so I had to try to trust what he said, while also still making strong decisions like closing down China and standing up against certain mandates and such, while also allowing the governors to do their thing. But I made mistakes. That's what I think would be. I think so many people would be caught off guard, but also very impressed if they could hear Trump say, I made mistakes. I think that would be very profound, and it would win me a lot more over. But I don't think it's going to happen, because I think he's obviously very fueled by his ego. What do you guys think? I know this is going to be controversial, because I know a lot of my followers are very pro-Trump. I understand. Let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like the video. Even if you didn't love everything I had to say, like the video, because then it allows people to have this discourse and have this discussion. And I'll have it with you in the comments too, or on my radio show. You can call in when I'm live. Do that. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment again what you think, and share it with your friends. God bless you guys. God bless America. Thank you for watching Speechless. Cut for time.